Thank you, Hadi. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to everyone here in the room, everyone in the other room. Welcome to those watching us online. Hello, Reddit. I promise to say this. So, conferences, people use them differently. And I'm probably not the most sociable person in the world, so I use them weirdly. People come to conferences to network, to learn, to listen to talks, to exchange ideas. And I mostly come to give talks and to be with you, because this is what I'm actually running on, the excitement of the Kotlin community. Thank you for being here. My story starts quite a long time ago when I got a new job. It was to work on a completely new programming language. If it sounds a bit crazy to you now, well, it did sound a lot like that to me then. And, it was a huge risk, but ambition was never my weak side, so I jumped in, crazy as it was. The name Kotlin wasn't even around at that time. We had a code name. And many, many great things happened since then. So 8 years, fast forward, and here we are. Kotlin is an established technology with a very strong backing and crowds of people gathering to celebrate here at KotlinConf. How did they all come about? Well, step by step, actually. We had our ideas in the beginning, but over time we realized that our main focus, our main motto, was to make a pragmatic language. You've heard this word a lot. We're using it because we really believe in it. And I would like to expand a little bit on what pragmatic means to us. Well, pragmatic is something about practice, right? About getting things done. And for a language, it basically means not to stand in your way. We want your ideas to be clearly expressed in the code. And basically what it means is turning your thoughts into working software without any hoops to jump through. That's the main goal. But if we dive a little deeper, people praise Kotlin for many things, like these, for example. And I honestly have to object, because if you take these really pragmatically, you have to cross them all out of this list and replace with something else. So many people say that Kotlin is concise, and this is a good thing about it. Well, I personally don't really care much about concision. What I care about is readability. A short program is not necessarily a good one, right? But if you have a lot of boilerplate, it's a problem, because you have to read through it all. Bugs can hide there. So what we care about is readable code. It must be shorter than some languages, you know what I mean, but it's not concision for the concision's sake. Same goes for expressiveness. It's something, of course, to be proud of for a language designer or even a language user, right? My language is so expressive. I can do so many things with it. But actually, what we care about is reuse. Powerful abstractions are needed in languages to turn common patterns into libraries. And this is why we add things of expressivity to Kotlin as a language. Originality is actually my favorite, because people argue about that so much, Like, who invented this? Oh, this language is just copying this from that other language. Who cares? You know what? We are not after originality by any means. Quite the opposite. We don't want to stand out. We actually want to blend in, because interoperability has been the Kotlin's motto throughout the years. We want to reuse existing knowledge, existing expertise, to make every library out there available to Kotlin programmers, even written in other languages. So, not original, interoperable. And last but not least, soundness. Another point of pride, especially for the academic perspective, sound means that whatever your compiler tells you is 100% correct. But actually, there is very wide understanding that mainstream languages are mostly not sound. They're soundy. And what we actually care about in Kotlin, why we have a static type system, it's safety and tooling. So I need the type system to catch my bugs, not to be mathematically correct. If it catches bugs as much as it can, then great. This is what it is for. And also, of course, the type system is what enables the tooling, right? I can click on it and go to the declaration, thanks to the type system. And it's actually that declaration that will be called. So these are our values, something we designed Kotlin according to, and this is what drives us through the years. There is another side to pragmatism. It's being a tool for people. A tool by itself is dead. Only when it's used, it's relevant. So being popular is essential for a pragmatic setting. It's people in the community who generate the actual value around the language. And this is why I would like to talk about Kotlin's momentum. Here is our yearly chart. I like the curve a lot. Many years ago, I was telling my friends that, it's a risky project. I don't know how it's going to turn out. But if we reach 100,000 users, I'll be OK with it. It's already a good achievement. It's enough critical mass to really make sense, to have good things generated. And this is probably where my ambition failed me a little bit. Because here's my 100,000. This year is not done yet, but we already have seen 1.5 million users do something with Kotlin this year. They opened the editor and changed something in Kotlin code. So I'm pretty confident they were knowing what they're doing. So, it's an amazing number. I didn't expect this. But I'm really excited to see it. And let's maybe look a little bit into what those people are actually doing there. I would start with the overall perspective we have at Kotlin. Because we, from the very beginning, we never thought of Kotlin as a tool for a single use case or 2 use cases. It was always thought about as a general-purpose language, which means that it should cover a vast majority of use cases out there. And of course, it should work on all platforms and in all settings, basically. So if you simply look at the demographics of this conference, what people in this room are doing, it's from the polls we took at registration, and it's multiple choice. So if you add it up, it's more than 100. We see a lot of mobile, obviously. We see a lot of server, obviously. We see web client. We see desktop, even embedded. It's not necessarily everything done in Kotlin, but people here are interested in Kotlin, so a lot of it is. And this is a diversity we're aiming for from pretty early days. So if we look at the momentum at different platforms, of course, Android is huge there. Last year, Google announced Kotlin as a first-class language on Android, and today, 1 in 4 apps at the top 1,000 of Google Play Store is using Kotlin, which is great. And the total number of apps using Kotlin in the Play Store has quadrupled since last year. This is the pace I like. But of course, mobile is one of the Kotlin's use cases. And there is more. Web programming is strong, and the monthly usage has doubled there since last year. That's a lot of people. It's hundreds of thousands of people doing server-side work and client, so on. And we have really good friends there. The Google Cloud Platform has started this community-supported project for Kotlin. And the Spring Framework, the leader there, is our longtime friend. So it actually makes sense that Kotlin is popular on the server side. Because, Kotlin shines on the JVM, JVM shines on the server. You want to be productive in a high-performance setting on the server? Kotlin plus JVM, that works. So it makes perfect sense to me. And I think this whole story is a good confirmation that we're going the right way. And this is a good time for me to say thank you. First of all, to my colleagues on the Kotlin team. Many of you folks are here in the room. Many are watching online. It's my great pleasure to be working with you, and we'll make wonderful things happen to Kotlin together. But it doesn't end with a team, because there are hundreds of people helping us every every incremental release, we are adding pull requests from the community. People send us patches on GitHub. People report issues, give us feedback. That's invaluable. Thank you very much. But the community at large is doing a lot more. Like, look at how many questions and answers are there on Stack Overflow. Every newcomer will Google this and learn by your answers. Thank you. Messages on Slack, exchanging ideas, asking questions, answering questions, guiding newcomers. The Kotlin community is a welcoming place, a warm place, and I'm very much moved by this. And, we're all programmers, right? So we're doing code. And many of us are putting code out there on GitHub. And great projects, too. We've reached a psychologically important number of 100 million lines of code on GitHub, which is amazing. It's almost quadrupled since last year. And there are wonderful projects there like RX Kotlin or Flexbox Layout, for example. Very popular. Many people are using them. Great work, folks. Just keep it up, But there is one thing that I really want to mention about the Kotlin community. It's not an engineering thing. It's not a technical thing. It's emotional, because it's love. This year, Stack Overflow ran this survey that showed that Kotlin is one of the most loved languages on Earth, which is, a very warm feeling to know this. And other data, like the survey that Google ran, says that over 90% of Kotlin developers are satisfied with Kotlin, which is a crazy number. Like, so few people complaining. And by the way, to the people who are complaining, please give us your feedback. We'll fix it. So, this love theme is very important to me, because finally, ultimately, I'm an emotional being. And this is what I run on. And if you just Google Kotlin love in the image search, you'll see so many hearts. This is what people doing blog posts about Kotlin are using in their graphics. Hearts, love, the idea of falling in love with the language. And you know what? We love you too. Yeah, let's move on to more down-to-earth things, but very important. I mean, this community is doing real technical work. And Kotlin was intended as an industrial language from the very beginning. We definitely wanted to be accessible to all kinds of people, to beginners, to hobbyists, to everybody. But it's crucial to be relevant to the industrial setting. And a good indication of how it works in industry is the job market. And many people even ask questions about this. So thanks to dice.com, here is the job growth in Kotlin. Well, 1.5 million users means that there are, things going on, and no wonder we have this curve. But actually, it's very interesting looking into those job openings posted online. Like, companies are describing their positions, and they're saying, knowing Kotlin is a plus, some of them. Some of them were looking for a Java or Kotlin developer. And to me, it means a lot, actually, because people rely on the idea of a Java developer coming and picking Kotlin up very easily. And of course, if you know Kotlin already, it's an advantage for you, so it's a good investment to learn if you haven't yet. And if you look more into those listings, it's actually a very interesting source of information. I haven't been using it before, so it's like a big revelation to me. Like, reading those openings is so enlightening. Like, there is one word-leading bank that says, we're looking for Kotlin developers because we're moving our entire front end onto Kotlin JS. How good is that? Like, I'm really moved by it, and shout out to the Kotlin JS team. You guys are doing real good work there. And like other major banks, for example, that I unfortunately can't mention here due to legal hell that this world is, there are openings like dozens of engineers hired to this bank to work on mobile, a lot in that bank to work on the server side, so on and so forth. So it's it's been picked up by finance. You know what that means? By the way, it means that doing finance is a lot more fun these days than I used to think about. And companies are definitely using Kotlin as an appealing cause for developers to join. We're using Kotlin technology, so come join us. And this is readable from those openings. I have a few use cases, a few case studies reported by some companies using Kotlin. All three of these are really big tech companies with a lot of users, like millions of users. Allegro is a retailer, huge in Poland, like dominating the Polish market. N26 is a European bank based in Germany with millions and millions of transactions. And OLX is a classified ads company. Lots and lots of usage, operating in like 45 countries across the world. They're all using Kotlin, mostly on the server side, processing lots and lots of transactions all the time. And one of them says, we did this new worldwide payment service entirely in Kotlin. Love it. Totally would do it again. Well, thanks for the kind words. I'm really happy to hear this. And talking about all sizes, in the listings we see really small startups, really big startups, established companies, and real giants. Microsoft. A team at Microsoft told us a story about converting their mobile SDK from Java to Kotlin, shaving off 25% of lines of code there, which is nice. I know this feeling. It's very nice. I just convert, and I have the same code, but it's less code. It's, helps readability. But the important thing is that they preserve the API. And this is very important, because it's not just you rewrite everything and you throw all the clients away. Interoperability gives you this opportunity. You go Kotlin, and you stay with your clients. So I'm really happy we could help the team at Microsoft, and that the usage gets to this scale. So at this point, I'm pretty satisfied. And as we promised last year, we created this entity called Kotlin Foundation, which is a nonprofit backed by JetBrains and Google. This is to mark the established status of Kotlin, to oversee the promotion and development, and to hold the trademarks. So go to Kotlin/Foundation to find out about the details. By this time at the keynote, you're probably like, OK, announce something already, right? Well, I have a problem. Kotlin is an open source project. So if you're really curious about us announcing something, it's there in GitHub. But anyway, Kotlin 1.3 is coming soon. You know that the RC is out there. And I really, really encourage you to go ahead and try it now. Give us any last-minute feedback. It's really important. And I'll walk you through some highlights about 1.3. One of the important goals we have with Kotlin is being good for scaling up. Modern world is a lot about scalability, and you've seen the scale people are using us for. So it's important. And this is why we added the paradigm of coroutines to Kotlin. Coroutines are a way of doing asynchronous, non-blocking code easily. And we've been keeping them in experimental for 2 years. And today, I'm happy to announce that they are ready to stable. Thank you. So almost everyone should use coroutines from now on, because it actually adds a lot of value. And I expect that this year may be a year of coroutines for many Kotlin developers. You can learn more about what coroutines are and how to use them in great talks that we're going to have here. Bankends and Romans will be live streamed. And also, I'm happy to tell you that Kedar, our asynchronous framework for connected applications, has reached 1.0 beta and will be also released soon. Kedar is a ground-up implementation of an HTTP stack all done in Kotlin and coroutines. So it's completely asynchronous. It's a wonderful experience using it. You should totally try. To learn more about coroutines, just go to Kotlin coroutines. There is a lot of material there. Next thing, and a very big thing, is that we always intended Kotlin for everyone, meaning every application developer in the world. And of course, this means many, many, many platforms. So I'm very happy to tell you that Kotlin Native has reached beta and is shipping as part of 1.3 now. Thank you. So Kotlin Native is our compiler backend that translates Kotlin to a standalone native binary that runs without any VM, has its own runtime. Native works for various platforms, iOS, Windows, Linux, even WebAssembly. So it actually widens the reach of Kotlin quite a bit. And it's true to our core values, like interoperability. You can call into any C or Objective-C library. You can call Kotlin Native from Swift, which is actually a very good use case. So it's Kotlin, and this is why we're editing it. You know, having your own runtime is a chance to set a few things right in the world. So we're trying different things, and there is my favorite, which is concurrency, which is hard, you know. And Nikolai today will tell you a lot about the concurrency model native, but I want to highlight one thing. We're trying to get rid of shared mutable state altogether. You know, no erases anymore. Mutable is fine. Shared mutable shouldn't happen. Learn more in Nikolai's talk. And learn a lot more in Kotlin/Native. There is really, really many interesting things. An important note. Kotlin Native is not yet giving you the opportunity to go multi-platform, right? Because platforms are not only native. There is JVM, there is JS, there's Android. So Kotlin multi-platform is bigger than just native. It's the ability to have your application run on different devices, servers, mobile phones, browsers, and all these applications can use a common piece of code. The single piece of code without change can be compiled to different platforms. We've been working on multi-platform for years now, and 1.3 brings a new multi-platform model with a whole new set of things in the Gradle DSL. It's a lot more convenient than it used to be. So you can look at the sources of the KotlinConf app, for example. You have this code in your pockets, I hope. And now it runs on so many multi-platform libraries. We have libraries for HTTP serialization coroutines done by the Cullen team, and settings and logging done by the community. So the entire logic layer of your application, all the infrastructure, all the business logic can be shared, and it is. Just check it out and do your apps this way. Well, there is a lot to say about multi-platform, but not so much time. So go and check this page out. But you know what? Compiling is nice, but editing code may be a bit more important. So I told you that tooling matters a lot to us. And multi-platform tooling is really a challenge, because you take JVM, you take Native, you take JS, you put them all into the same IDE. Well, it's not so easy to make this IDE. But it turns out it's kind of possible. So I'm happy to announce that in 1.3, you can open an entire multi-platform project described in Gradle, including JVM, JS, Native, in IntelliJ IDEA, Community, or Ultimate, or in Android Studio. Knock yourself out. Yeah, so the reworked Gradle language for definition of multi-platform projects gives you a lot of opportunities there. You can have different source set depend on different things. You can basically express all the common code, all the platform-specific code in your application. You can compile the native part to a framework and connect it to an iOS application. So it's all there, and you can use it even from free tooling. You have all the editing experience, navigation, refactorings, so on and so forth. And we'll be working on more tooling features over time. Speaking of Gradle, you've heard probably about the Gradle Kotlin DSL. If you go to gradle.org/Kotlin, you'll find an RC there. It's going to be released soon, and it's a great type-safe DSL that you can use for your builds. Actually, our new DSL hasn't caught up with this yet, so you'll be still using traditional Gradle, but it's a great experience. You should definitely try it. And there will be a Gradle DSL talk here at KotlinConf as well. So scripts are actually an important thing. You know, we like to scale up because it gives us the sense of importance. Right, but small programs are very important, and even one-time programs are very important. Important to beginners, important to professionals. So we are investing into the scripting capabilities of Kotlin a lot. And an example of that is the Scratch files feature that we have in 1.3. You can run your script, the KTS file, as a Scratch file in the IDE, and it will give you all those nice results of every statement you have in the script. This is very much like REPL, very much like a playground you can do anything with in your IDE. So check it out. And speaking of all the wonderful things, wonderful new things, we're not forgetting about the important essentials. We are working on everything that there is, fixing bugs, improving experience, and of course, we're working on the build time. So here's the improvement since the last release. I've done a lot optimizing different kinds of builds. There is now support for incremental compilation in JavaScript. So you can do lots and lots of stuff with this. A lot of announcements, right? And you can find even more at Kotlin 1.3, Kotlin/1.3. There are more language features, more tooling features, lots and lots of information about libraries. Just check it out. It's worth it. I think it's a good time for me to switch to the future, because this is something that's not on GitHub yet, except maybe in YouTube. The evolution of a language is a challenge, because an advantage of Kotlin is that it's been designed from scratch, right? So we took the opportunity to do everything right, being very constrained by the interoperability. But still, we don't carry 20 years of legacy behind us. But the thing is, we don't want to be constrained with this legacy 20 years from now. And that's an important thing. So there are guiding principles we use while working on the language. And one of them is keeping the language modern. So there are great ideas in languages. Some ideas are not so great. Some ideas become stale over time and don't work anymore. And it's very important to evolve the language, dropping the legacy, getting rid of all stuff, to keep it modern, to keep it really up to date. And there is quite a bit of negative experience with this, right? Because about the language community is struggling with version updates because of incompatible changes. So another principle we're using is comfortable upgrades. So when you install a new version of Kotlin, it's just working for you. We don't want your code to break. So these two principles constrain each other, of course, but it's really essential to find a good balance there. What we need is keep the language modern and keep the upgrades comfortable. So what we do to achieve this is whenever we want to fix something, whenever we want to remove a bad case or do something like this, we issue a deprecation. We warn you well in advance, like many, many months in advance, years in advance. Give you deprecation warnings. You install a new version. You see, OK, this will be phased out over time. You don't have to migrate right away, but you'll see this pop up in the IDE, proposing you to make your code better. And it just works. It automatically migrates all the code you want. But if you're really conservative, really want to stay with the old code without touching anything, there is a compatibility mode in every new version. So you're safe there. So that's our idea, our policy for gradual, comfortable upgrades. You'll be able to simply migrate when you update first, and then next time when things actually are phased out, you will not just notice it. It just won't be there. So these are two principles, and the third one is, of course, keeping in the loop with you. Because the feedback from our users is what makes language design not an ivory tower thing, but a pragmatic thing. Right? And it's been our philosophy since very early on. We make something, we show it to you, you give us feedback. Right? We do not get offended with the feedback. We just take it seriously, we change things, we improve things. And coroutines are, for example, a great example of that, right? Like we had 2 years of intensive development when people were trying coroutines out. Like, some people were actually already doing production systems, giving us feedback, and we were in the loop with them, and we improved the performance dramatically. We reduced the number of allocations a lot. So now coroutines are really good, and this is why we're confident rolling them out. So feedback loop is important, and this is why we have so many EAP builds. Like every incremental release we have comes with EAP, and the big release comes with RC, so please try it out. Give us feedback. And by the way, I want to highlight one thing. There is something called progressive mode. Who heard about it? Few people. OK, check it out online. Progressive mode. So if you're maintaining your Kotlin code base actively, just turn on this flag, and you'll get all the cutting-edge bug fixes right away. You won't need to wait for a long deprecation cycle to finish. You'll just get the fixes right away. Check it out. So the feedback loop idea is basically continuous delivery for language features, right? And 1.3 actually comes with a few experimental features. We introduced inline classes, which is basically a class with only one field for now that can be erased by the compiler. So you get a transparent abstraction. It's a free abstraction, but it gives you type safety. Using inline classes, we implemented unsigned arithmetics, which is, a long-wanted thing for people working with bytes and bits. So we have a library for unsigned arithmetics. We have language support. All that is experimental. Try it out. If something doesn't work well for you, tell us, because there is time to change this. And type system is a crucial part of the language. So we're improving it constantly, and we're doing that gradually. So 1.3 comes with exciting things about the type system. Overall type inference improvements, and very notably, contracts. Contracts that add so much knowledge to the type system. Like, I can now know that my run function only executes my Lambda once. And the compiler knows that too, so it can let you initialize vals in it, for example. Which has been an annoying detail for many Kotlin programmers. Svetlana will tell you much more about the type system stuff in her talk at this conference. And this is the process for the evolution. We are working on the design a lot, and there are so many ideas. It's not easy to pick ideas, because we can sit together with Roman and others to outline 1.4 roadmap, and the roadmap won't fit on a blackboard or two blackboards. But it's really important to focus. We can't do everything at once. Even with lots and lots of experimental features, we don't want the entire world to be experimental. So we'll be trying to focus. And one important thing we'll be working on is compiler API. So this doesn't sound like a language feature, because it isn't, and that's the point. Kotlin has been growing in two directions over time. It's been adding platforms. Like, we started with JVM, soon added JS, now we've added Native, and we're now covering all platforms. And it's been adding paradigms too. And what's paradigm? Basically, a paradigm is a set of ideas that are important. Like OOP, for example, takes certain kinds of abstractions as a very important thing, right? So we started with OOP and functional. And from the very beginning, we have these two paradigms. Then we added coroutines. And it's a whole new layer, right? We added scripting. Scripting is a completely different way of thinking about programs, of life cycle, and even the interaction experience. So these paradigms we already have, but there is one thing that we don't really have, and I don't really want it in the language. It's metaprogramming. Because there is a very important problem, contention, between metaprogramming and tooling. When I say metaprogramming, some probably think C++, template metaprogramming, some think macros. Both are very hard for both humans and computers. So making an IDE that will be really nice around macros, for example, is a huge challenge, and I don't want to go that way. Instead, we had a very good experience doing compiler plugins. You probably know quite a few that we have now. They've been solely developed by the Kotlin team for now, but we'll be working on stabilizing the compiler API to make it a really smooth experience. You write a plugin, you plug it into the compiler and the IDE, and it works all together. So metaprogramming the Kotlin way will be the compiler API. We, of course, will keep working on what we have already, because there is a lot. There's a lot of use cases we support. There's a lot of tooling, different kinds, IDEs, build tools, everything. There are experimental features that we have to finalize. There are libraries, a lot of libraries, that we'll be working on ourselves, and hopefully we'll take help from the community. So there's a lot there. But there's also distant future. This is something I'm totally not promising for 1.4. Well, things before I'm not promising either, But Saner concurrency is something we are really serious about. I've told you about Kotlin Native, right? So there we are experimenting with the concurrency model that rules out mutable state. You can share immutable data. You can detach your mutable object from one thread and then attach to the other. That's fine, but you cannot have access from two threads to the same unprotected mutable object. And that's very important. And it's nice to have this in the runtime, because it's then really enforced. But there is a counterpart to this in the language, actually many counterparts. So for one thing, I would really like to see at some point first-class immutability added to Kotlin. Because this is something that's pretty complicated, should be tracked by the compiler. It's also complicated for the compiler. So it's not easy to add, but we'll definitely work on that. So Saner concurrency is one of our big goals. They're somewhere out there. Well, I've told you a lot, haven't I? Hope you're not very tired. I am. So you can learn a lot more about Kotlin. Being an experienced Kotlin developer or a beginner, you can learn a lot. And there is numerous learning materials out there. There are books, online courses, offline training, everything. I would like to highlight a few things. So Svetlana and myself are starting a new Coursera specialization with this course, Kotlin for Java developers, that's going to start in October, and everyone here at KotlinConf will get a free invitation. Yeah, so there will be more courses in this specialization over time. Svetlana is very productive, and together with Bruce Eckel, she's working on a book, Atomic Kotlin. This is quite a nice story. A long time ago, I was learning by Bruce's book, Thinking in Java. So I was kind of Bruce's student. And then Svetlana was my student. And now they collaborate on a book about Kotlin. What a world, So Atomic Kotlin will be out soon, and everyone here will also get a free invitation to check out the early version. You can, thank you. People like free stuff, right? Yeah, that's why people like inline functions. They are free abstractions. Don't overuse them. Yeah, there is a very nice way to practice Kotlin, which is install a plugin for your IDE, which is called edutools, and get all the exercises right in the environment you'll be using for production. It has atomic Kotlin exercises, so a great companion to the book. It has Kotlin cones, which is a nice introduction. So if you want your friend to learn Kotlin and be in high demand on the job market, just give him this. Works well. Many great courses are coming. If you really don't want to install anything in your IDE, just go online, play KotlinLang.org, and lots of exercises are available right there in the browser. It's like a mini IDE. You know, I'm arrogant around IDEs because you know, JetBrains. But this is a nice IDE. It has examples, it has koans, and it's just a good playground for you to try things out. I use it all the time. So welcome there. And lots of learning materials are available at Kotlin/Learn. Use it yourself, show it to anybody you meet here in the street in Amsterdam. Maybe they're a developer, you know? OK, it's been a long keynote. We talked about the values that Kotlin's been designed for. We talked about the momentum, the excitement we see in the community, about the strength of our community, about the industrial adoption. We talked about 1.3 and all the new features, notably coroutines, native, and multi-platform, including tooling and libraries. Right? It's a lot of things. Now, it's a very good time to start diving into the KotlinConf experience. You have lots of great talks in front of you, lots of interactions. I wish you a nice day. Have a great time at KotlinConf, and have a nice Kotlin. Thank you.